What's up, everybody, and welcome to Early Edge Primetime. We've got the Jets, we've got the Raiders, but we have no coach. It's going to be me hosting today. Coach will be back with us tomorrow, of course, for Monday Night Football and, of course, for the Early Edge on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning. But listen, I know a lot of people wanted this game flexed out, but it doesn't mean there's not betting opportunities. So let's bring in the stars of the show. As everybody knows, the Early Edge Primetime is always powered by BetMGM. I just noticed that Washington scored to tie the game up with 50 seconds left. Everybody who's watching this knows I'm a big Washington fan. So let's see where that one goes. But I don't know that there were a lot of surprises necessarily today, but before we get started with this game, real quick, I just want to go around and ask everybody what stuck out to them on this Sunday before we dive deep into Jets versus Raiders. Coach Phil, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I'll go real quick because I want to talk about this football game a lot, but just something significant to me was that getting Trent Williams back at left tackle for the 49ers, they look like a different football team. They could run the ball. They protected it well. Even the defense looked more confident. And what I did hear is that he called up the offensive line and the defensive line together and told them that this game is going to be won by us in the trenches. And that type of leadership is significant. And that's the things that Kyle Shanahan is looking for. So getting the big fella back and what his leadership and his production has been, I think that was a huge key for San Francisco today.
Yeah, if you watched the kickoff show with me and Proppy and AB and Coach, of course, this was my favorite game. I loved the Niners -3. I thought they'd roll. I didn't think they'd roll this easy, but boy, was this a good stock up, stock down situation to take the stock down team, the team that I think is the best in the NFL. AB, anything stick out to you with this early slate of games before we get to Raiders Jets?
Yeah, the AFC North. I mean, look at it. First off, you have the Bengals who lose to CJ Stroud and the Texans, who CJ Stroud is balling right now. I mean, just out of control, playing great. What about the Browns? A huge comeback on the Ravens. The Ravens played offensively almost a perfect game, and the Browns came right back and won it. And then Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. I mean, however you want to get down, however sloppy it is, like this dude just keeps winning, man. Like it's incredible. It's weird to say that he's absolutely underrated as a head coach, but Mike Tomlin is absolutely underrated as an NFL head coach. I mean, the fact that they are where they are with that roster is incredible.
It's incredible. Proppy, before we get in this game, any comments from you from this early slate of games on Sunday?
Look, Sia, it's great to see you, Phil, AB. I'm hyped, even though this matchup may not be the best one on paper. I think there's a lot of exciting prop opportunities, fellas. It was a rough day for me today in the prop streets. I never hide from losses. What do? We pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we get ready for the next pick. Here we go. I'm fired up. It was a great day of football. Very, very excited. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to CJ Stroud, who leads the NFL as a rookie in passing yards per game. He's doing so on the Houston Texans with Nico Collins, who's never had more than 600 receiving yards, with Noah Brown, who's never had more than 500 receiving yards in a season, averaging 17 yards per game, and a 5'9", 165-pound rookie named Tank Dell. CJ Stroud is having an amazing season, doing just phenomenal things.
CJ Stroud, surprising everybody, including those who supported him. I mean, he's just been that good. Coach Phil, let's go.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't interrupt you real quick. I was just going to say, I don't know what the odds are, but I mean, is there anyone that's going to be AFC Rookie of the Year over him?
Well, yeah, he's got it pretty much locked up for Offensive Player of the Year, for Rookie Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Coach Phil, we've got the Raiders and the Jets. We've got the Jets visiting the Raiders as a slight favorite. It's a low total, as we might expect with these quarterbacks. And really, from a skill position standpoint, these teams actually look pretty good, but it's the quarterbacks that really hold these teams back in large part. So let's first talk about your Raiders' keys to the game, Coach Phil.
Sure. So we'll start with the home team, starting with the Raiders' keys to the game. Good little curveball. But let's just talk about the Raiders and what they need to get done. Their offensive players need to excel against this Jets defense. They're the 29th ranked offense. They're 31st in rushing, but the Jets have not been very good against the rush. Josh Jacobs had a really slow start to start the season, but he's starting to build up. He's got 500 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, so he's going to need to keep the momentum going tonight. Devontae Adams, we all know he's got one of the best skill sets in the league at the wide receiver position, and he will have opportunities tonight because Robert Saleh does bring a lot of pressure. Whether it's a fire zone or a man pressure, there'll be one-on-one opportunities for Devontae Adams tonight. The second thing is that Antonio Pierce has this defense playing fast, physical football. And the defense looked much different than it had looked over the previous 7 games than they did last week against the Giants. Now, they gave up 277 yards, which isn't awesome. They're not perfect against a struggling Giants team, but just the way that they came after the quarterback, the way that they pursued the football, I thought it was an improvement. They're the eighth ranked pass defense, which is really, really important, because if they can stop the run tonight, because they're the 31st ranked run defense, if they can stop the run and make them one-dimensional, they can win this football game pretty easily if they can do those things.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, everyone, if you have questions about Raiders players specifically in the chat, or Jets players, put them in there, because, and Proppy, I'll come to you right now. I know you just raised your hand, but a lot of our props tonight, which you'll find out in a second, are Jets related, other than some team props that I know AB is going to throw out. But Proppy, I'm going to go to you. What'd you have to say there?
Just wanted to point out, I know the game's ongoing right now. Just cash DK Metcalf over 23.5 yards, longest reception. Just had a 26-yard reception. So nice to get that play.
There we go. He mea culpas his props that, hey, it wasn't such a great day, and you know what the reward is? You hit one of your props. So absolutely love that, even though it was against my Commanders. So, Phil, I got to kick it right back to you, because I want to hear about the Jets before we get to Proppy's pick, before we get to my pick, and before we get to the no-fly zone. Let's talk about the Jets' keys to the game.
Right. So the Jets are a very interesting team. You know, if they can sustain drives and score touchdowns, they're going to have a chance to win this football game tonight. But we got to talk about them on third down. They're only converting 22% of third downs, which is 32nd in league. It's last league. We know that. But by 9%, the next team has 31%. They're 9% less on third down. So it's very, very difficult to sustain a drive if you can't convert on third down. So the 31st ranked total offense, you know, that's a work in progress. There has been some slight improvements over the last 4 games. A positive is they're rushing for 103.4 yards a game. So if you have Breece Hall, you know, Breece Hall, he's probably going to go for 75, 80 yards tonight. That's, you know, and then Dalvin Cook will get the remainder yards when it comes to rushing. The weapons that you got to concern yourself with are Garrett Wilson. I mean, he's got 46 catches, 549 yards, a couple of scores. He's starting to ascend. You know, if he had Aaron Rodgers, I bet his numbers may be 35% higher than where they are right now. Breece Hall, to me, is an explosive back who's coming off an ACL. He's beginning to look very explosive again, like he was before the injury. And he, to me, he's an ascending player. He's got 5.2 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. And then sprinkle in Tyler Conklin, he's another guy, or Alan Lazard. Those are your other options that the Jets have at their disposal. The second key to the game will be, can this Jets defense continue their outstanding play? I mean, they're 9th in total defense. They're very good statistically, but they bring pressure. They timely turnovers. They play extremely hard on defense. They're 3rd against the pass, so they're really, really tough to pass the ball against. But one area they need to worry about is their 30th against the run. So again, we're looking at these, you know, Josh Jacobs and guys like this can exploit this run. So who can run the ball first and who can watch the first 2 drives? Whoever can get the running backs going is going to have a great chance of winning this football game in the trenches.
Yeah, one of the words I heard there were Breece Hall, Breece and Hall. And Proppy, that's where I'm going to come to you, because, you know, I think guys like Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall are obviously interesting here from a prop standpoint. And it's because we kind of know the volume is going there, right, Proppy? I mean, when it comes to Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, even Garrett Wilson, we're not so sure what the volume is going to be just because of the quarterbacks. And if the game script is a certain way, you're going to take the air out of the ball. You're not going to take the running out of Breece Hall or Josh Jacobs. So you've got a prop relating to Breece Hall. Let's hear it.
I do indeed see it. Yeah, it's Breece Hall over 63.5 rushing yards. Gave this out on the Friday prop show. Love this spot for Breece Hall. This is one of my favorite props on the board this week. Coach Phil mentioned it as one of his keys to the game is going to be Breece Hall being the function or the engine of this Jets offense. I just love this spot for him. He looks phenomenal, removed from the injury, playing looks to be 100% to me as well. He's 2nd in breakaway yards, 8th in elusive rating this season, coming off of 85% of the team's rushing attempts. That is an elite number. 3 weeks in a row where he's had over a 60% snap share as well. So he is being fed a huge workload. So clearly there are no limitations with Breece Hall. Now he faces a Raiders run defense that's 28th in EPA allowed per rush and very susceptible to speed. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs just a couple weeks ago on prime time go for 150 plus versus this defense. So I think we're going to see a ton of Breece Hall. I think he's going to have a ton of big chunk plays. Love him to go over 63.5 rushing yards. I know the number's ticked up right now to 67, 68.5. I'm still comfortable playing it there.
Yeah, I think I'd be comfortable playing it there too. And that actually, it goes right into my pick here. I mean, I have a pick that I think we're both going to like because it's not going to be a surprise if Breece Hall breaks off a long run or two. And that's partly because of how bad the Raiders rush defense is, but it's also because Breece Hall is really good after contact. That's one thing we're seeing. Like, he's been pretty inefficient overall, if we're being honest with the Breece Hall experience, but he's been able to break runs. Like, it reminds me a little bit of the Kenneth Walker experience where he might have a few runs in a row that just don't get anything, but he finds a way to break one, just like he did against the Commanders earlier today. So I like Breece Hall's longest rush over. This is a pretty big number, 15.5, but I like it at -115. Again, Breece Hall longest rush over 15.5 yards, -115. Really like that one. And the other play I like is I like the Jets in this game. I don't know that I was willing to take the game. I wanted to take the first half money line at -115. Part of the reason is because of Antonio Pierce. And this isn't to knock on Antonio Pierce, but I do think we're going to see a very watered down game plan, a very conservative game plan from the Raiders early on. And I think that could lead to a stagnant offense. So again, it might be a stagnant offense anyway, but I just don't see the Raiders really taking any risks. I think they're going to want to lean on their defense, Max Crosby and company. And I think we're just going to see so much Josh Jacobs. It's going to prevent them from scoring in the first half. The Jets opportunistic defense. And I do think we're going to see Zach Wilson try to get Garrett Wilson involved, and we know we like Breece Hall in this game. So I'm taking first half money line Jets -115. So those are my picks. And AB, we haven't gotten to your picks yet, and we certainly haven't gotten to your no-fly zone yet. So I know that's a part of the show that a lot of the people in the chat are waiting for. So why not unveil it right now?
Let's let it rip, man. All right, so let's bring up our boy, Zach Wilson, first here. All right, so if you are new to the early edge or the no-fly zone, what you have on the top left is the Raiders secondary defensive completion percentage rankings across the NFL. Below that, the SportsLine simulations in regards to the percentage that Zach Wilson will throw in interception tonight. All right, now, some Zach Wilson interception splits that we have. 80% of his 5 interceptions this year have come on the road. That being said, his last 3 games, 0 picks. We spoke about it last week. The kid's not playing bad. He's not doing a ton, but that's part of the game plan, is to limit that risk and exposure, and he's playing within that frame nicely. Now, so you see on the right, Zach Wilson, his stats this year, 75.4 passer rating, 59.9% completion percentage, 1,600 yards passing, 5 TDs, 5 interceptions. And in the top right, the no-fly zone. This is Zach Wilson. This is who he is as a quarterback. Where he's going to have problems is if he tries to face this defense deep left, deep mid, across his body, all right, as most quarterbacks would. Now, the other spot you see, short right, that is a trouble area if he is flushed out of the pocket and makes a quick and bad decision. That is where, quite frankly, I worry for Zach Wilson in terms of him throwing an interception, is right there. But that's where we sit. Now, let's move to Aiden O'Connell of the Las Vegas Raiders. So I have 2 graphics here that I'll show you. First off, you see the left side, the Jets, same deal, 99% to throw an interception, according to the SportsLine simulations. All right, now, he's only played 2 games. So you see his 1 touchdown, 2 picks. All right, he has, in the fourth quarter, 100%, both interceptions thrown there. The red zone, 1 touchdown, 1 interception this year. All right, so top right, I have charted every single pass that Aiden O'Connell has made this year, which is also in his NFL career. So you take a look and you can see it. All right, to the short left, that is where a majority of his passes go. Almost all of them are 10 yards and in, which we see with young backup quarterbacks, even young rookie starting quarterbacks. You don't want to put them in really tough situations, and that's what the Raiders have been trying to do. You see his one interception here. Actually, both of them have come there on the short right. So let me pull up the no-fly zone for him, and it's very similar to Zach Wilson, except we're going to go all 3. Deep left, deep mid, deep right, and then short right. And for the exact same reasoning, if he gets flushed out, makes a quick and bad decision, that is where quarterbacks, specifically young ones, make it, because they're not going to throw across their body to the left. They'll throw it on the short dump out, and that route gets jumped, and that route usually goes to the house. Now, I'll pull it back up here so that we can see the picks that I have. I have 4 of them that I think you guys will like. We're going to have some fun in tonight's game. So, first 2, Jets points band, 11-20 plus 110. Raiders points band, 11-20 plus 105. Essentially, what that means is that each team scores within 11 to 20 points. We're also going to play the Jets Raiders over 35.5. A little bit of a hedge there on the first 2, but we can actually hit all 3 of them with a total being this low. And then finally, BetMGM has Zach Wilson, Aiden O'Connell combined interceptions over 1.5 at plus 110. If you look to play over 2.5 turnovers, it's almost minus 160. So we're not going to do that. We're going to play the 2 picks at plus 110.
Very, very interesting. Coach Phil, your response to AB's no-fly zone on Zach Wilson and AOC.
Yeah, let's start with Zach Wilson. So when you're talking about a young quarterback, you're talking about decision-making, right? So where's the ball supposed to go? But we're talking about decision-making in real time with real pressure like Max Crosby. So he's been great over the last 3 games about turning the football over. So you've got to give the Jets coaching staff a lot of credit, helping this young man process and put the ball in less jeopardy. But tonight, it's going to be in jeopardy because he's got Max Crosby with the pressure. And then obviously in the secondary, Marcus Peters, he is aging. But this is a guy who really kind of preys on these young quarterbacks. He maybe have a deep third and he'll come off his guy on an over route and pick the ball off. Like, where did he come from? Well, he just took a chance. He's got great instincts. Now, we've beaten him deep on plenty of times when he was in Kansas City for touchdowns, but he will come off of a route if he feels like it's a dead route and try to play the live route. So he is a factor, and that's just the way that they're kind of operating in Las Vegas. They gamble, right? I mean, that's the way they're doing it. So they're going to make some tough decisions for Zach. That's what's going to happen tonight. So I can see that happening. Going over to Aiden O'Connell, just going against a Robert Saleh type defense and a Pete Carroll defense, it's very similar. All these guys are coming from, with Gus Bradley and all these, they have a different philosophy around pressure, in particular on third down. So when you're a young quarterback and you're sitting back there in the pocket and you have all 6 guys up, you got to re-ID the protection, slide it one way, here comes a pressure from the other way, so you could get sacked. And the ball's got to come out into these tight fire zone windows that you feel are wide open, and all of a sudden somebody drops out. So just the complexity of what Robert's about to, because he's a young quarterback. So you put the whole Golden Corral buffet on the table for this guy, and you hope that you can get one of these fire zones to confuse him and have the pressers get home.
Yeah, and let me jump in real quick because everything Phil just said is obviously 100% correct. And look at the Jets the secondary here. All right, so you see short right. They're the 6th best in the NFL. If he makes a mistake, the Jets will make you pay for it. Deep mid, deep left. Deep mid, they're the best in the NFL. Deep left, if he tries to throw across the body deep, they'll make him pay for it. Essentially, what the competition is tonight is which defense can absolutely take away the run and force these young quarterbacks to put the ball in the air over and over and over.
100%.
Yeah, go ahead. 100%. Yeah, I was going to say, whichever quarterback has a run game, that team is going to play with safety. Whichever one doesn't is going to be an absolute hell tonight.
That's very true. And it would be worse. It would be worse for Aiden because that Jets defense is more sophisticated from a defensive play calling and identification perspective.
Yeah, and Proppy, that makes me wonder about these Raiders receivers. I mean, I think it's probably pretty purposeful that we don't, and I think it's game script dependent to some degree, but that we don't have props on Jacoby Myers, for example, or Devontae Adams. I'm looking at Jacoby Myers' number. It's a pedestrian, 40 and a half, 41 and a half yards. And then Devontae Adams, 56 and a half yards, or at least in that range. Do you have a lean either way on either of these 2 guys?
It's not inspiring a lot of confidence, particularly with Devontae Adams here going through what is inarguably the worst stretch of his career. I think part of that has to do with quarterback play. I think he's probably operating at less than 100%. He's had this lingering shoulder issue, which has been problematic for him. And frankly, he just doesn't look that engaged to me. Watching him, I just feel like the effort level has been slightly inconsistent. I think he's frustrated just with the way things are going with this team. So hard for me to really back Davante Adams. He's also so talented, where if he is engaged, clearly capable of having a big game, even against a pass defense as good as this Jets team. So it's a stay away for me. If I had to choose one, it would probably be Jacoby Myers. Just seems to, have a slight discount compared to Adams, working a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. I think there's a little chance for higher success for completions there. I'd probably look at it from a volume-based approach over 3.5 or 4.5 receptions. But yeah, not having a lot of confidence in either options. To me, they're just total stayaways.
Yeah, I totally agree. Speaking of stayaways, Buckets is in the chat, FYI. So apparently he thinks O'Connell is a German surname. And after the Jared Goff experience and Justin Herbert, I'm not surprised that he is pinned to Germany on Aiden O'Connell. Coach Phil, you had something.
Yeah, but probably just between the two, just thinking about Davante Adams, right, and just thinking about if I'm Pierce, right, I'm Antonio Pierce. My first week, I'm trying to get the defense situated. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in my staff. Okay, we got to get a new coordinator. The last thing I'm worried about is Davante Adams touches. You win a football game, you show up on Monday, you sat up there at podium, and they say Davante had 2 for 17 or whatever, and he's like, oh, really? And it's a little embarrassing because, you were a great player, and then you go back to the coordinator and be like, dude, we got to get this guy going. We're paying him $25 million a year. He's one of the best in the league. So this is a game where he could have one of those boxes where like the coordinator just is calling a run, and then a screen, and then a pass, and then a run, and then so it's all, and it could be like one of those situations where it's week 2 under a new coaching regime, and it's going to be a mandate to get this guy going.
Yeah, and by the way, I think that lends itself to what Proppy just said in terms of looking at the reception as opposed to the yards, because you're going to get a lot of design stuff, Coach Phil, probably some wide receiver screens, some short area stuff to get Aiden O'Connell comfortable. And so you might not reap a lot of yards against that Jets defense, but you're probably going to be able to scheme him open in the short area. So I think Davante Adams' receptions is actually a good look.
Yeah, I'd say, receivers, we can be babies, right? So screens are like pacifiers for us, because we want the go ball, the post, the deep sail route. But if I'm not getting a hitch or something or a screen, and you're a star like Keenan Allen, trust me, like I'm going to be hearing about it the whole game until we start getting them some screens. So get that pacifier out there to that baby and get him a couple touches.
You know who can call Coach Phil a baby? Coach Phil. End of list. AB, I got something for you because you did the no-fly zone. I want to talk about the quarterbacks and their passing yards because speaking of pedestrian, I mean, these are low totals. 201.5 in Aiden O'Connell's situation. And then, of course, Zach Wilson, 205.5. That's the range we're looking at for either of them. I really think the problem with this is I think both teams really want to lean on the run. And unless one of these teams gets down early, you're not going to see a lot of like QB letting it loose stuff. And so I wonder, am I wrong about that? Do you lean to the over in either of these two guys?
You're not wrong. Now, I would say that I would lean towards Zach Wilson, so to say, because I think that he'll actually have a little bit more of a leash. But here's the thing with Aiden O'Connell is that you can get yardage and still play safe when you have a guy like Davante Adams, because he could take a 5-yard route 65 yards, right? So that's the key. How do you utilize these guys to where you limit the risk of the quarterback, but also give yourself an opportunity to get down the field? Now, I'm not saying running pick plays or anything like that, but what I am saying is utilizing the run game, all right, to essentially say, all right, I'm going to make you not only choose between stopping the run or stopping the pass, but I'm going to mess with you horizontally as well, right? Like we're going to hit gaps here in the run game. We're going to go side to side. I'm going to make you play every single yard width-wise of the field. So while I say Zach Wilson, just because the Jets defense in the secondary is much better than the Raiders, Aiden might actually have the better weapon, if that makes sense. So I didn't really fully answer the question, but you've got a higher ceiling with Aiden if they could get the right play calls in, because Davante could go to the house at any moment.
Yeah, and honestly, we got such a smart chat. By the way, smart chat, if you haven't hit the like button, please go ahead and do that. And I got to give a shout out to Dominic D because he literally stole the words right out of my mouth. He said, live bet the losing QB over yards, which is a really smart play, I think. But what I was going to say was live betting the receivers' yards, whether it be, the Jets receivers if they're down, or in my case, I think it's more likely that the Raiders will find themselves down early. But this is a really good live betting opportunity. Now, listen, it's not like you're going to see an explosive offense just because one of these teams is down 10 points. But you do want to at least take a look. If the Raiders are down 10 early, for example, taking a look at Devontae Adams overs, taking a look at Jacoby Myers overs, maybe even Michael Mayer, Austin Hooper, just to see where those numbers are at. Because if it's a quarter half into the game, you're going to see that yardage come way, way down. And the game script should dictate that AOC is going to have to force feed them the ball. So this is, I think, a really good opportunity to look at some live overs when it comes specifically to the receivers. Probably before we get to what we all want to get to, which is the first touchdown scores, where I can't really remember who's starting that segment. I'm going to have to look at the numbers. But Proppy, let me ask you this, because one thing I know you like to avoid is running back receiving yards. And so it's a little ironic that I'm going to you on this, but I got to say, Josh Jacobs at 19.5 receiving yards looks pretty appealing. Now, I know last game he didn't get a single target, but I think that was a little different than what we're going to see in this game. Any appeal to Josh Jacobs receiving yards or Breece Hall's at 18.5?
Yeah, Breece Hall interests me just because of his playmaking ability, because he can take one touch and obviously just pick up 25 yards very easily, even if he's getting touched behind the line of scrimmage. Just, yeah, from an ability standpoint, few players possess the playmaking ability of Breece Hall. So I don't mind Breece Hall. If I'm going to play Breece Hall, though, I'm going to take a shot on his rushing yards clearly, or his combination line, or I like how you attack it, Sia, based on his longest play because of his ability to chunk. As far as Josh Jacobs is concerned, I do think he's a rare exception. I do like him because he has a pretty safe target floor. Now, last week was an example of why I largely avoid running back receiving props, because these guys, even with fairly safe target floors, can get game scripted out of a game and just not even get a single target. This does seem like a matchup on paper where Josh Jacobs should be more involved as a pass catcher as a result of this Jets defense being very good on the perimeter. They do allow a lot of running backs over the middle of the field to have success. We saw that with Austin Eckler last week. Had a few drops, but if he had not had those drops, he would have had a big impact in the receiving game. So I think Josh Jacobs has the ability tonight to make an impact as a pass catcher. I think 19.5 yards is a friendly number as well.
Coach Phil.
Yeah, I like Breece Hall and the receiving yards for two reasons. One is I think traditionally they like to run the stretch zone, fake play pass, and then that's the one that got knocked down to Eckler last week. That would have been probably a 40-yard completion, right? He got batted down. But Hackett likes to do that kind of stuff. So there's going to be designed screens to try to get the Breece Hall in space, right? So there's going to be one or two of those in the game that are called. The second thing is you got the pressure from Max, right? So he's going to be stepping up. And at this stage of his development, he should check the ball down in his progression. He should be, 1-2, I'm getting pressure, Breece. That's 1-2, I'm getting pressure, Dalvin. That's just where his teaching should be. So those are the reasons why, just talking it through.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, to add on that, watch, because both of these teams obviously are very much trying to mitigate and limit risk to their young quarterbacks. Watch in the first quarter, after the first scripted drive, right, which is already, kind of set up, and then when the chess game begins, watch who is playing better on first down and second down in terms of leaving short third downs for their quarterback. Yeah, because that will tell you a ton. If you have one of these quarterbacks that's facing 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, and the other one's facing 3rd and 3,
sure,
man, it can give you a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of look.
Really, the 2 to 3 is where you want to be. Then 4 to 6, that's how they break it down. Then 7 to 10 is where you do not want to be against these guys right now. And then 11 plus, it's like 18% conversion rate in that range. So those just the 7 to 10 AB, that's the one. Like, tune in, see what's going on, and you're going to see you'll see how complicated it can be to play quarterback in this league.
Dude, you're right. Yeah.
Coach, that's 18% with like a normal NFL team. What would it be with the Jets and Raiders?
I bet you this year, like I bet you right now, they might have converted 11 plus or 2 on the year at 22%. Because at 55% on 2 to 3, you're like okay, and then you're like in the 40% and 4 to 6, and you want to be in the 30%. Like you want to be for them to be 22% overall. Like they might not have converted 11 plus, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, you might have noticed, by the way, the BetMGM right up there in the upper right-hand corner, in the lower third, how it's got all of the graphics and the line, which was just flashed up. That's all powered by BetMGM. And, as Coach likes to say, BetMGM is going to do you a solid. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get $200 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10, and you will receive $200 instantly in bonus bets, regardless of your wager's outcome, with bonus code EDGE200. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the time that I've been waiting for. I don't know about Coach Phil, but we do this fun thing. These are like kind of gimmicky bets. We're upfront about that, but we happen to hit them a lot. Although the last 2 games, when you get punt returns to the house, like you're probably not going to hit the first touchdown score, but this is what we like to call the gem. And if we can flash that up on the screen, we might notice that one of us has, well, 2 of us have more gems than the others. But Proppy, you're doing great because you've got 2. I mean, the difference between 2 and 3, it's marginal, but the difference between 3 and 0, well, that's not marginal. So Coach Phil, you're going to have to wait till the end here, but I'm going to go ahead and lead with mine. I'm going to go with Michael Mayer. Listen, he hasn't really done as much as I think we thought he would over the last couple of weeks. I think we thought the production would spike with him after we saw him a few weeks ago get so many targets. The good news for Mayer is he's seeing himself on the field. He's still running a lot of routes. I think in this case with Aiden O'Connell, I think he's going to have to really go to guys he's really comfortable with. And I'm not sure that's going to be the receivers on the outside. I think it's going to be Josh Jacobs, Michael Mayer, maybe a little bit of Austin Hooper. I think that's going to be the comfortable targets, the targets that Aiden O'Connell's going to probably start with. And if they can get in or near the red zone, I think Michael Mayer has a real shot at plus 2,500. So that's my play. Next is AB with 3 gems as well. AB, where are you going?
Yeah, buddy. Look, I think that you nailed it right there. Like my thought process is the exact same as yours. Find a guy who can get lost in the coverage. Number 2, a guy that could take one to the house, but generally also is kind of getting fed some short, safe route opportunities, right? So I think that we're both looking at this the exact same way. We're not looking for, who's going to, palm a 9 route out here and take it 70 to the crib. Like it's generally somebody that's going to catch, something safe and take it up the field. So yeah, I'm going to go Jacoby Myers 1,200.
All right, Proppy, you've got a name that's pretty familiar to me. I know I've had this guy at least once, and I like him as a target for Zach Wilson. Talk to us about your first touchdown score.
I'm going to go with Conk Daddy, a.k.a. Tyler Conklin. Quietly been Zach Wilson's number 2 target in this offense, his security blanket. Yet to score a touchdown this season. He's due, in my opinion. Give me Conk Daddy for my 3rd gem.
I like it. I like Tyler Conklin. I think Tyler Conklin's a good football player. Listen, there's a lot of guys on this field on both sides of the ball that are really good football players. They just, unfortunately, this year aren't going to get showcased. And Coach Phil, one of them is your guy. I mean, listen, if Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback here, I think we'd be talking about your gem pick in much more like glowing light. It wouldn't just be Garrett Wilson. We'd also, I think, be talking about Allen Lazard, not in the same light, but at least in a similar light. Talk to me about your first touchdown score.
Yeah, his role would definitely be different if he didn't let more crossers and deep in-breaking routes that you need a little bit more accuracy and anticipation than the young kid has at this point. So I'm going with Alan Lazard. My picks have been dead, so Lazarus it is. I'm going to try to raise him from the dead and bring him back. So Alan Lazarus is going to be my play for tonight. I like this guy coming out of Iowa State. I was real high on him. He slipped. I think he ended up being undrafted, but I mean, we loved him in the Chargers facility. So this guy has an ability. He's had some drops this year, but we love Alan Lazard, and we're going to try to resurrect it like Lazarus.
I love it. You've always got something to go to with your gem. I absolutely love that. And let's not forget, you really should have hit it with Dalton Kincaid like 3 weeks ago. I mean, he literally got stopped.
I won't do it.
1 inch line.
I will not make an excuse. It was what it was. And then Josh Allen to boot. I mean, it was like a Shakespearean tragedy what happened there because of who won. And then like obviously how annoying and insufferable he is. And it's been quite peaceful tonight, to be honest. I've enjoyed this show immensely.
Shakespearean tragedy. See, you learn on this show too. AB, you dropped a Bastille French Revolution bomb, I think, earlier today, July 14th, 1789, in case anybody wants to check that date.
Nice.
We're going to check our picks right now, and I'm going to start. Let's just each go through our picks and maybe give a sentence or two on each one. I've got the Jets first half money line at -115. I think they're probably going to win this game. I think they come out firing a little bit more, a little less conservative than I think what we're going to see from the Raiders. Breece Hall, longest rush over 15.5 yards. The Raiders, they're going to allow some holes here. Breece Hall is going to get a lot of run. And honestly, after contact, he has been very, very good. I think he's going to break at least one or two of these. Proppy, what you got?
Yeah, I've got Breece Hall over 63.5 rushing yards here. You mentioned this Raiders defense, 28th in EPA allowed per rush. Breece Hall has really come on strong recently, playing without limitations, 2nd in breakaway yards, 8th in elusive rating. Love this spot for him against a subpar Raiders defense tonight. I'd play this one at its current number still. I believe it's 69.5.
Absolutely. All right, AB, you've got a bunch of picks here. What do we got here?
Yep. So we're going to go Jets point span 11 to 20 at +110. If you've never played these before, it's essentially how many points the team will score. So 11 to 20. Raiders, same deal, +105. We'll take the Jets Raiders over 35.5. Again, a little bit of a hedge here just in case, but we could hit all three of those. And then both quarterbacks combined over 1.5 interceptions. Could be Wilson throwing 2, could be 1 and 1, could be O'Connell throwing 7, +110, right? That's where we're going with it. Now, here is also what we're looking at really quickly. And it's a question that I have for you guys because we talk about safety with these quarterbacks, okay? Watch out for the Raiders, man. They're feeling it. There's a new guy leading this thing. Pierce, obviously, Coach Phil, you know him. This dude's an electric factory. This team is playing with really nothing to lose mentally, right? And they're playing at home. And if either of these teams fall behind, bad news. Bad news. So we'll see, man.
Hey, Coach Bill, before we have a couple minutes before we get at it, can I ask you, have you been on a team, whether it's been as an NFL player or where it's been as a coach, where, you've had sort of a changing of the guard mid-season and you've sort of felt those vibes? Can you describe that and also describe how long those vibes actually last? At what point is it like, all right, that's over?
Great question. I thought about this today, but I was too long to build into my keys, right? So in 2015, the Dolphins, I was the receiver coach, and they fired Joe Philbin, and Dan Campbell was the tight ends coach, and they brought Dan up to be the interim. So we had like 12 games left, right? So we dragged people. I think we went to Tennessee the next week, beat the hell out of the Titans. We beat the Texans real bad, and we had physical bye week practice, and we were in Oklahoma drills. Guys were really going. We had one-on-ones like at the end of practice just to call it up. It was insane. It lasted about 3, maybe 4 weeks. And then we kind of reverted back to where we were as a team, because again, think about it. The reason why the Raiders made a choice is because they're low in talent in certain areas. Obviously, you don't just, this isn't like something that was just loaded down. It was only Josh McDaniels. I mean, there's a lot of things that are wrong, right now that in Vegas. So Pierce is going to come in here and the obvious nails, he's going to hammer those things right back into the baseboards. But some other things, whether you're quarterback, or stopping the run, there's things like that he really needs to do. So a few weeks, and I've been around it, and it was definitely a difficult situation at first, but you make it work. I mean, Ben Johnson got elevated to tight ends coach, and Zach Taylor got to become the coordinator. So sometimes, things happen, and you realize, oh, okay, you can do it.
Yeah, Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell both doing quite well right now in the coaching department. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Early Edge Primetime, at least for the Jets-Raiders game. Of course, we'll see you tomorrow at 10 in the morning for Early Edge. And then, of course, Monday Night Football, we'll see you again for Early Edge Primetime. But for now, that's all the damage we can do. So you've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these tickets straight. It's over here to the pay window. For Coach Phil, for Proppy, for AB, and AB times 2 because he's on the 1s and 2s and he's giving you all the info, including the no-fly zone. I am the counselor, and we rest our case.